And so when the government is looking and trying to counsel their students, their soldiers, their airmen into going to programs that are successful, they look at that and say, well, CTC is not real successful, but that school in North Dakota who had a 98% completion rate in criminal justice, that should be the school you attend. They don't even know what a soldier is, but that's what's going on. And so that's what's happening kind of around the world. Now, the bigger communities like Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, they don't have as big an issue with that as we do because their population is a little different. So we've got to always pay attention to that. What that did to us this past biennium was cost us a little over $2 million a year in funding. That hurts. I don't know that you know this, but and you may have known it, but I've been selected to be on the committee for formula funding for the state of Texas for the community colleges for the next 6 years. That's a good thing. We all need to get more involved in what we do statewide. It's a good thing because we're the only college that goes down there and says, hey, I've got a bleeding heart, you guys got to, this doesn't affect you, it really affects me. What's going on right now is all of the funding is moving toward performance-based funding, even more than it is now. Well, what does that mean? That means that we have even a bigger challenge because it's gonna hurt us in the long run because of the fact that we are a community college, we have to accept everybody. So it's going to take all of us pulling together to pull through this. Talking to other college presidents, they said what their plan is to hold on to every student they have and try to make them a completer. Get them through a certificate program of some sort. Now, Belle Whelan at Southern Association, those of you, if you attended SACS or heard anything that she talked about, she's now recognizing that part-time students are a factor and part-time students will be measured, but it hasn't filtered back to the state. And remember, the 4 years drive what really is going on here, and so the four-year institutions don't want us dallying in things like early college, high school, and dual enrollment, dual courses. So they're trying to put the kibosh on that for all of us, and that's a mainstay for us right now. And we need to continue to keep that model. For dual enrollment, it's limited to 2 courses. So perhaps we can get the state to change those parameters and allow students to take more than 2 courses. If that's the case, if they kill early college, high school, we could still operate it and wouldn't be a problem. So, we're working on lots of things that are going on, but in spite of that $2 million a year loss, in spite of the fact that we were down 5% on our enrollments, we still came out in positive numbers, and that's attributed to all of you who did everything you could, tightening down, adding students to your classes, and so forth. So I want to thank you for that, from me, from the board, from the staff, from the deputies. That's tremendous. We need to keep doing that. Now's not a time, as I said, to give up. So looking forward. I don't know that most of you know this. I think you do, but we don't operate the Pacific Far East campus anymore. That's a thing of the past. The government finally recognized that we weren't making ends meet, and it was really a fault of the way the contract was designed, and so they allowed us out of that contract at no penalty. And they asked if we would bid on it again. When it comes open for bid, they're going to do some rewickering of what that contract might look like in the future. So we'll see, and if we can make it work and we can come out in the black, we're going to bid on it. If not, we won't do it. We're not needing to plant flags just to be doing that. We're looking at all of our continental sites. We've reduced some of them. Europe is reduced. They are adding things that aren't voluntary education. We're looking at all kinds of innovative ways. We just, Tammy Samaripa just did one with Dr. Ady and her staff to the 68 Whiskeys, all of the medical folks out at Fort Hood, and getting their certifications. And the government says, we need this training, we have all this training, and so you have these medics and paramedics and EMT folks who come through their system, but when they get out of the service, they can't get a job. They got to start over and go back to school. It doesn't make any sense. So many of those young people have more experience than an emergency room physician does, working 10 or 15 years. So, you know, all the things they do downrange. So she worked with Fort Hood, and we finally decided, well, if they can't be turned out to class because it's considered training, you can't use tuition assistance money because it's training, then the question was asked, okay, is certification a requirement for the government? And it went all the way to the Department of the Army, and they came back and said, no, it's not. It's not a requirement. Well, if it's not a requirement, then will you turn out your soldiers during the day? Will you give them permission to go to school? Yes. Okay, well, they can use tuition assistance because the certification wasn't part of with their need for the government. So those are some of the kind of innovative kinds of things that we're looking at in terms of doing some things. We're working with Congressman Carter, trying to get Homeland Security to come here and allow us to do some things using perhaps the old Killeen Airport that sits vacant. Be an ideal spot to do some things. So we're looking at all of those kind of things. There's lots of things going on with industry, and if you see people running around like Ronnie Turner with some of these people going show and tell and all that, that's what's going on, because we're trying to bring industry here and get those things going. Early college, high school, as you know, is going to blow up again in September. We'll get another 300 or so young folks over here added to the 200 that we have. We're also, with Dr. Ady and Dean Anderson, have embarked on, and Michelle Carter, on a contract with KISD for the STEM program. And so some of you have visited the STEM Center over at Roy J. Smith, and that's something of the future. Those are students that we typically wouldn't see here in a community college. Those young folks, when they graduate, they go on to major universities, but that's a different kind of animal that we're going to get. So it's a challenge for all of you to find out what they're doing over there, what they're doing at the middle school, what they're going to do at the high school in the STEM program, so that you can be prepared for them when they come here, because they'll challenge you, and they're going to be here. And I think they've worked out, I don't know, 10 or 12 pathways, something like that, for students, 15-hour pathways, 30 hours, 60 hours, so forth. So they'll talk more about that. So we've got a lot of things going on, and just wanted you to hear about a little bit of it, knowing that we're not sitting around saying, wow, we made it one year and now we're in the black and we can move on and everything's good. It's not good. We got to continue on. Our enrollments right now are about 9% down from what they were last year. So that means, again, we need to do everything we can to hang on to the students that we have and try to keep them going to school, try to get them through a certificate program or a degree program. That's really our goal. So that's what the other college presidents, as I said earlier, that's what they're trying to figure out, is how they're going to hang on to the students they have, because success points are going to drive the funding in the future. And anyway, anybody have any questions for me? I'm gonna turn this back over to Dr. Ady or Dr. Anderson. Anybody? No?
Good morning. Not quite sure everybody is awake yet. So good morning, and welcome to the second part of the 2017-18 school year. I wanted to give you a few updates. The Chancellor and I, and also Ronnie Turner, we'll have to leave shortly because we have a meeting with with an industry partner that we could have a potential partnership with. So. Well, we're glad we're here this morning. We can spend a little bit of time with you. Few updates I want to share with you. You will hear from all the deputy chancellors, but one that really pertains to all of us is that we reorganized just a tad bit last year as far as what we're doing. There's an org chart. It's about 98% correct, but what you will see on there is we put more of the support services under Dr. Garrett. You know, the business-related functions, including the planetarium, went under Ms. Carter, and then what you see under the Deputy Chancellor U.S. Campus Operations, that's really the line that you fall under Dean Anderson. And so we reorganized a little bit just to streamline, to look at where are things, should they be where they are. Also, every Monday we meet with the Chancellor. We have an executive meeting just to talk about anything that comes up. And trust me, every week there's something that comes up that's noteworthy mentioning, that we either need to look into, need to work on, things to consider as we move forward. In addition to that, the three Deputy Chancellors meet and we go a little bit more into depth into individual things that we work on. We have noticed over time that really anything that you do in your department sort of has an effect on other ones. So that was one of the reasons why we said we really need to get together more often and just talk about what our areas are. And I know Dr. Garrett has meetings too that includes folks from different areas. So we don't want to be working in silos. We want to make sure that we share information, that we understand how it impacts other areas as we make decisions and as we really move forward overall. The next item, I know you all heard about the 60 by 30 Texas, so not going too much into it, but it has an overarching goal that at least 60% of Texans aged 25 to 34 will have a certificate or degree by 2030. So under that so that's the overarching goals, and under that are other goals. One is to make sure that we produce completers. So that could be a certificate, an associate's degree, bachelor's, and so on. Then also marketable skills, and that is the one I'm coming back to. So when students come, they don't only earn a degree, but they also learn other skills in the classroom. So our question is, what skills do they learn, and how can we share that with employers? So we don't only say the student has a subject matter knowledge, but they also have skills that they can use in the workplace. And then the fourth one deals with student debt, that undergraduate student debt will not exceed 60% of first-year wages for graduates at Texas public institutions. But we're going back to goal number 3, the third goal, the marketable skills. And what we did at the P20 conference, I presented along with someone from Temple College, and we talked a little bit about it. We had industry partners there, and we said, okay, let us give you a couple of examples. So this is the first example on business management. What are the marketable skills that students learn when they pursue this certificate or that degree? So if you look along the top, it's a little bit hard to read, it's really small. But what it is, along the top it has the AA in business management, certificate in business management, certificate entrepreneurship, supervision, and so on. So on the left-hand side, in that column, you see marketable skills, and the things that are listed are things like interpersonal skills, critical thinking, evidence-based research, networking, ethics, time management, and so on. So when you look over to the right, if you look at the whole grid, you will see that students learn other skills. So how did we find out what skills they learn? Well, we worked mostly with the department chairs, and they in turn involve faculty, and we said, okay, so if a student has as a degree in business management, in business in general, what type of skills does a student have? So the first step was, we had several departments, and here's another one, nursing. So we had the departments identify what other skills students learn, aside from the knowledge, of course, that they take through the classes, but what kind of soft skills do they have? So we identified that. So we're working still on step 1 because we don't have that for all of the departments. So this is a heads up to you that Dean Anderson and Ms. Brooks will be coming your way. Ms. Brooks was the one who worked with the individual departments that we established these marketable skills for. So expect a visit to see how does it look like for your certificates and degrees. So step 2 of all this is, though, to figure out how do we share this with employers, because normally when a student applies for a job, that student provides a transcript. So the transcript lists classes, it lists courses, and grades. It doesn't really list course description, and it certainly doesn't list marketable skills. So step 2, and that's really where you come in too, we need your ideas. How can we convey these marketable skills that students learn in your courses and your degrees and your certificates? How can we pass this on to potential employers? So that's one of the things that while you're here, maybe if you talk to others, get some ideas, but we would love to have your ideas. And I think Dean Anderson will be taking notes as you come up with something to say, this is how we can show it. So is it a different certificate that we do, that students can give along with their transcript, that lists the marketable skills? What kind of things, what ideas do you have to make sure that we pass those skills on? All right. Next item, we talk about a little bit about different initiatives we have going on. So there are slides, one that's a little bit more geared towards service members getting out, and the second one is about community initiatives. As the Chancellor mentioned, we do have initiatives, various ones that we are involved in with the military and also outside of the military. One program that Dr. Clark and her team is working on is to offer an accelerated 68 Whiskey accelerated LVN program to the 68 Whiskey soldiers, the combat medics. So the idea is they already have skills in the military. What are some things we can do if we teach all day long for, probably 3 to 4 months or so? What are some skills that they already have that we can exempt them from? We had a meeting at Darnell, and Darnell is just greatly interested in that. So that's a program that we're working on, an initiative. The Chancellor mentioned the EMT program. Tammy Zamaripa worked with the Mystic, the Medical Simulation Training Center on Fort Hood, and established an accelerated EMT program. That is, though, for soldiers staying in the military. It's not necessarily for the ones getting out. But again, the military is interested in what we can do for them to honor the credit that soldiers have already earned that are working in that field. Next, we do have a partnership with St. Michael's Learning Academy on teaching the SAP program. We're sort of in the final stages, so hopefully next month we'll kick that off on Fort Hood. But it's a non-credit 10-week program. It's for exiting service members, and our roles are SAP will be providing the curriculum. They will be recruiting students and screening students for the program, and at the back end they work into bringing students into the employment field. Whereas our part is to instruct the program, to have an instructor, to provide facilities and things like that. So students also get the TRIP 10 certification. The only, if there is any drawback to it, is the students will probably be leaving this immediate area. They will be going to bigger cities where there are companies using SAP. Let's see. Ronnie Turner can probably speak better to this, but there is a Shifting Gears program that already exists. It's run by GM with Raytheon as a subcontractor. That's been running on Fort Hood for several years, and it's very successful. So Raytheon representatives approached us and said, well, what students really need to have when they finish this program, what really makes them marketable, is for these service members to have ASE certifications. And we said, well, sure, that's what you need. We'll plug it right in there. So Ronnie Turner with his faculty developed, I want to say it's a 2-day break review and certification class and a 4-day electrical class. So that will be part of the Shifting Gears program starting in the next couple of months. And it's a little component of it. But again, it's something that's generating revenue for us, for the college, and it's great for the service members as they are more marketable with those certifications. Let's see, item 4. We are having a meeting today. That's why we're leaving somewhat early at the workforce. We have a meeting there at 9 o'clock. And we will be meeting with Bechtel. As you know, they're a huge construction company. And honestly, we don't know where this meeting is going, but we will find out. They are interested in partnering with us, again, on some type of transition programs for service members. So maybe in the pre-service, more info on that. We also have the Caliber Collision Partnership, where CTC has a role. Students enroll in auto body classes, and then towards the end of it, they come through us. We enroll them. They start the program, come to us, and we are involved in that portion as well. So that's auto collision, or auto body, rather. The DFW Airport Police Partnership, you probably heard of. The airport police cannot pay for students, but they do sponsor the equipment, so they kind of handpick select students to go into our police academy, and then you know, with if they do well, they hire them on at the end. So again, it's another employment program for exiting service members. And the last one, we had a meeting on Heroes Manufacturing. This is a company that already has this program running at Fort Riley and is setting it up at different sites. So what they're looking for is to bring a simulator for students to train on that. It would probably set up in the Vocational Skills Center, and then to connect the students with employers. So really, everything on that slide that you see is geared towards service members exiting, being trained in something, and then being immediately put into the workforce, which is clearly a benefit to the service member and also to the Army, as in hopefully not having to pay unemployment. So these things keep us pretty busy, but we, outside of the military, we have some other initiatives. As we mentioned before in the meeting, we signed an agreement with the city of Killeen, and that is to train any kind of staff, any kind of training needs they really have. So it could be sending you know, city employees to programs we have, or just developing something for them. So interestingly enough, a couple of months, we had 2 employees that came and said their staff needs some refresher training. I think it was HVAC and electrical related. And so, you know, this is what we're looking for. We're looking for the city and other groups to come to us and give us the opportunity to say, what are you looking for? What are your training needs? And then in turn, we can develop what that is, and we can administer that. So Ronnie, if you're here, I have not read your email, but I saw that you sent it with the pricing and what it is. So these are all things that make us more visible, that generate money for the college, and that are really a win-win for everybody involved in that. Also, we're working with the Killeen Police Department on setting up courses, training courses for police officers. So the hope is, once this program is built, that police officers come from really anywhere, Texas or anywhere, and come here, do the training with us, whatever that is. Now, that's not necessarily police academy related. That could be any kind of training related to their specific job that they have as a police officer. Let's see. All right, service area. So when we talked about who does what update, I think we kind of split it up. I know there's so much more to talk about, and Dean Anderson will really give you sort of the other half later on in the day, right? But I want to give you a brief update on service area and initiatives that are going on there. You see on the slide that we have various locations. Earlier in the year, we had gotten together to look at, all right, what do we do at the sites where we only have one site director? So whenever this person is sick, whenever this person is out recruiting, whenever this person is testing students at the high school, going to a chamber function, then the office is closed. That sort of presents a problem. So what we did, at least at every site now, we have a clerk. We have at least 2 people, the clerk and the site director. The tasking for the site directors is you need to go out in the community, and basically you need to drum up business to really wrap it up in a nutshell. That's what we're looking for. That could be that you go to functions by, like I said, by the chamber, by the city, by different organizations, and really nothing builds by itself. That's what the chancellor said. You have to constantly go after it. So with 2 people in the office, at least, we don't turn students away when somebody is not in the office, and so we think that was a very good move. Every quarter we're getting an update, so Mark Pollard is the one who provides that, and so far it has good results. Let's see. In Gatesville, we are looking for a new location. If you have, any of you been to our Gatesville office before? You have not? Okay. I understand maybe why you haven't, because it's not really pretty. We are right outside of the Hilltop units. So if you didn't know any better, you would probably think we're the trailer that belongs to the prison. I mean, going into the prison, obviously, we do business with inmates. You know, we enroll them in courses. It's convenient, but it is not very good if you're trying to get community folks to come and take courses. So we're looking for a place that we can lease, maybe a two-person place, so that we can attract the community to come in and register and test and do things that they need to do. On another note, Texas A&M is ending their instruction at the prison in Gatesville. So then on top of that, the person who was handling the registration there left. So they said, well, if we pay you CTC, can you guys assist and enroll our students in classes? So if you dealt with prison education at all, you know, you have to lay the offender in. When they're laid in, then you meet with them, you go over the educational plan, then you sign them up. It's a little bit more complex than how we handle registration here, but we agreed to do that, so our Gatesville staff is doing that, and with that we are generating a little bit revenue on registering the TAMU students. So at some point, obviously, as students graduate from the TAMU CT program in Gatesville, you know, that student pool will get smaller, but in the meantime, it's a good source of revenue for us. And I guess last item, competing schools in the service area. Well, that's not really just in the service area, I guess. It's really everywhere. But we had different schools in the service area that have come and gone to the school districts and said, look, we can provide this education to you for cheaper, and we can provide other things to you. And I mean, pretty much they have cut us out. I don't know how to say it any different, but that's up to the school district. If they see a benefit in that, you know, they can do this. The good thing is, too, we have some school districts in the service area that have come back to us. So they realized, okay, maybe that sounded really good in the beginning, that other schools could offer certain things, but then in the end, you know, it does not always happen. So again, whatever we do is just really, it's hard to give an update because there's so many things that are really in various stages, you know, in the progress of where we are. And then sometimes when we go a certain path, we learn we really have to go a different one. But I'm really glad that we could spend a little bit of time with you this morning, give you some updates, and just keep you posted on what we're doing. And I think next is Ms. Carter. All right.
Good morning. My husband tells me, he's retired Air Force, that a good presentation is one that follows the ABCs of presentations, and that's to be accurate, brief, and clear. So I endeavor to do that this morning, so I won't be before you long. Quickly, Mr. Yiannopoulos covered several items within my area, so I won't belabor some of the points that he made. But I did briefly want to talk about the fiscal year 2017. Can you hear me okay? So I feel like, okay. Fiscal year 2017 annual audit, which ended in December. The culmination of that was the wonderful performance awards that we received. But I want to tell you, in addition to that, and more importantly than being in the black this year, was the clean audit that we received from Lot Vernon. They will present the audit to the Board of Trustees during their monthly meeting this month, and we are pleased to report that there are no material findings, which means that your efforts throughout the year to follow policies and procedures and tighten your belts, as Mr. Yiannopoulos said, and just, you know, good stewardship of the college's resources, it paid off, and that's what we work for towards the end, is a clean audit. So thank you for that. Fiscal year 2018 operating budget. This year's budget is $145 million. That sounds like a lot of money, but it's actually the smallest budget that we've had in decades. You know, when you're preparing a balanced budget, and it takes Mr. Liberty about 5 to 6 months to do that, when you're preparing a balanced budget, you've got to anticipate or project revenues and then line those expenditures up with that. And we've seen a reduction in three key areas, obviously: state funding, our federal grant and contract activity, which Dean Garcia knows all too well. I mean, we had to close the Pacific Far East, you know, and then of course with tuition revenue, just pure tuition revenue, because enrollments are down not only here, as you know, but around the world. So, and we're having to get really creative with operations, as Dr. Rady just talked about. So we are pretty much close to where we were this time last year. We don't know what the closure of the Pacific Far East campus and the online high school will do to our bottom line. We're hoping to see something positive there. Those were very difficult decisions that had to be made. But then also we have things to consider as it relates to unfunded mandates, you know, some accounting reporting requirements, and so all those things play into it. And we won't know until towards the end of the calendar year, same as this year, where we land in terms of our bottom line. So, but again, you know, I cannot stress to you enough how much we appreciate the support and cooperation of the faculty and staff in managing this budget. Mr. Liberty continually lets the board know anytime he presents the financials, which is monthly, and some of you have been there, to the Board of Trustees, he is very clear in stressing the fact that it's a collective effort. And so we're in a place now, I've been here 26 years, so I know what it's like to not have purchases scrutinized as closely as we do today. You know, I was thinking about it this morning, and I said, I do remember when this was like the land of milk and honey, so to speak, and we're not quite in the famine, but we do have to be a little more fiscally responsible. And so it's evident when you get the annual report, and we can share those kinds of things with our Board of Trustees. Fiscal year 2019 operating budget, can you believe it's here? In a couple of months, you will be receiving your budget packets from Mr. Liberty, and it will be the same as the last couple of years. We will need to continue to be good stewards of the college's resources. We use a zero-based budget method. Most of you probably already know that, and that means we don't carry over anything from the previous year. We start from zero, and every expenditure has to be justified. And we can't, based on some of the reductions I just talked about, we can't present to the board $145 million budget of revenue and $200 million in expenditures. That's just not going to work. And so we appreciate your help. We know that you don't always get what you want, but we endeavor to ensure you have what you need. Finance and administration, I can tell you, my team, the budget and accounting folks, human resources, information technology, facilities management, business services, and risk management. We understand that we are a support function, and we understand that the core operation of this college is what you do every day in your classroom and in your online course rooms. And so we're here as a resource. If you ever need to talk to me about anything in particular, give me a call or call Mr. Liberty. Several of you have visited with me in my office concerning some larger expenditures and how we can get these things done, and so we're here to help, not be a hindrance. Somebody told me I'm just bureaucracy and red tape, but our job is to keep the college safe and our financial position sound. Next, I would like to talk about the facilities management. I don't need to tell you that something's going on. You see all the holes in the ground and the smoke coming up out of the ground and the big cement tunnels. Well, we are in the midst of a two-phase infrastructure utility project. And the first phase was a $6 million project, $6 million project. That included the electrical piece of that, and we dug tunnels and dropped those the cement tunnels underground to house all of the utility infrastructure lines, cables, etc. So we're wrapping that up, and we just started with phase 2, and phase 2 And that's more the mechanical, the plumbing, the civil work, the central plant. I tell people it is the non-sexy part of what we do. It's just, it's not pretty. But it has to be done. This is a 50-year-old campus. And if Mark Harmson sends me one more picture or one more video of what's below the ground and what ruptured, and I think I'm just going to spit. And so I know that's not very professional, but and so they're doing a lot of work, and it's going to take some time, but the work that we're doing now is work that should last us another 50 years, and so bear with us. One of the things that I'd like to say about that, because I know sometimes we say, well, we're spending all this money on this, we're spending all this money on that. I will tell you, those type expenditures are pulled from our reserves. I'm proud to say that the college does not have any debt. We do not operate with debt. We do not issue bonds. I call it cash and carry. And those major projects are pulled from our reserve accounts, and we have to put money in the reserves. It's like your savings account at home. You have to save for that rainy day when things come up. And so fortunately for us, the combined cost of these two phases is about $34 million. And so our reserves are taking a hit, but the good thing is we didn't have to borrow the money. And so reserves are obviously a little different than operating funds. You know, we can't use reserve money in the day-to-day. We'd run out. So just a little sidebar on that. And I do want you to know, one of the things that we get compliments on all the time are the grounds and the beautification. And I want you to know, we have a gentleman by the name of William Duggar, and I'm just going to sidebar here for a moment. He's very good at what he does, but I will tell you, more often than not, I have to tell Mark Harmson, well, what can we do in-house? What do we have to do in-house? And just to give you an example of that, our signage project, what they did with that sign out there on the highway, you know, we were talking about a project that was supposed to cost a couple of $1 million. Well, we got that down to a couple of $100,000 doing it in-house. And so those are the kind of things that we're doing. We are not, we lead when it comes to managing colleges' resources and being frugal. Security project. Mark Harmson last year presented to the board and it was on our list of projects to improve the overall security of our campus. You know, with Campus Carry, we've got high schoolers on campus now. We sit right next to Fort Hood. We are a campus exposed, sitting right on the highway, and so the first. Let me make sure I get this correct. There are four packages in this security project, and the first being the exterior doors and security system infrastructure, and you guys have seen that going on around campus, and we're wrapping that up. The second package includes the interior classroom doors and office suites, and then we have building support area doors and dorm locks, and then camera and emergency systems. The camera and emergency systems was moved to the forefront. It's now going to be the second item that we addressed, along with dorm locks. There's some things that have been happening on campus. We have multiple systems. Some are analog. Some you can't. You have to go to the particular area to view the DVR or the tape, the video. So what we are doing is working on standardizing our camera system into a singular system to better secure the campus. And excuse me. So that's the board has approved that, and Mark Harmson is working on that. So that was just a couple of things that I wanted to make you aware of. As I said, I wouldn't be before you long. And if you have any questions, you can give me a call, extension 1330. I'm so sorry. What did I do? Did I get? Okay. Extension 1331, building 108, suite 100. Come see me if you have any questions. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Raul Garcia. I'm the Dean of the Fort Hood campus, the Continental campus. I don't know if we have some new faculty, so let me tell you real quick we have a campus that's on Fort Hood. We do almost all the services that is provided, the same thing here on main campus. For an example, yesterday, we have registration. Our registration actually is into late registration. We started on Monday. Our classes start on Monday. Your classes don't start until Tuesday. But we're still servicing students. Yesterday in our building, we saw over 100 students in our building to service them, to sign them up for either central campus classes or online classes. So we do quite a bit over there. We teach classes in an 8-week format, for those who don't know, and we have our own building. It's basically just a classroom building. Our classroom buildings is basically shared by the Army. When we built up the building for the classrooms, there was an agreement, and part of the agreement is that we have to supply the Army with a number of square footage for classroom space. So we share the building. We actually control it, but we also have to share a number of the classrooms with the Army. Continental Campus is basically an organization with about 22 site locations. From Alaska to Hawaii, California, DC, to Florida. Most of those locations have as Dr. Eddy said, we like to staff them with at least 2 people. Some have 1 person, others have maybe 3 or 4. And if you go to one of our sites locations, we teach, in order to be in these locations, we have to teach face-to-face classes at the Army Education Center or on a Marine base or a Air Force base. And so we teach face-to-face classes, and we use adjuncts to teach there. Again, and I know we don't teach, or we don't provide almost all the services that you get here at Central Campus, but for those 2 people, they do everything that pretty much everybody does here. They create their classes, they hire their adjuncts, they do their timesheets, they schedule their classes, they do everything. They help with financial aid, they register students, they advise students. So that's what Continental Campus does, and we've got like 22 locations of that. And so let me start with the Fort Hood campus. And basically what I put up here, and it's not doom and gloom. I didn't put it up there to say that we're losing students all the time. Last year we had a decrease in our enrollment of about 16%. For fall, as you can see, fall last year to this year, we've lost 25%. The example that I'm trying to bring out here, it's very difficult to plan when you have a semester that you don't have, you're down by 25%. Next semester or next term, which our next 8-week session, we don't know what we're going to get. It depends upon a number of things that go on throughout on Fort Hood, and some of the things that go on Central Campus. So it's for us to, when we plan our classes and stuff, and we put out a number of classes and what classes we need to have and what we're trying to get through. It makes it difficult when you have enrollments that bounce from one place to another place, because one week you may get 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 soldiers back, and the next week you may lose another 4,000 or 5,000 going to someplace else. So some of the things that we've done is we have what we call a 2-for class. It's a combination of an English class and a history class taught together, combined. It's a blended class, and we meet all the same requirements. It costs the same amount for 2 classes. Our contact hours are the same as each class. So what we've done is we're trying to get creative to bring the people in. And our 2-for class, we've started with the English 1301 and History 1301 combined, and it worked out really well. And so this is our first semester this time, and we're offering the 1302 series, and it has just exploded. We've got nothing but great reviews from the students, and they really like taking the classes. Because we have, and we're just, like everybody else, we're low on our enrollments and stuff. And with the increase, and nobody can tell you more than this, that the number of contact hours that the faculty have to meet, it makes it very difficult when you have classes and you can't fill them with when you need 22 people in the class. So our faculty would never really be able to make their goals. So what we've started to do is we've started to change the makeup of our classes. We're hiring less as our full-time faculty have gone. We've hired less of them. We've gone to more of full-time instructors, which really have the same base contact hours and everything, but they're required not to do quite as much as you do. Of course, they don't get paid quite as much either, though. But so what we've done is we're trying to change that, and we're probably trying to go to more adjunct hiring and teaching. So that's one of the things. Some of the things that we look at Fort Hood is the impact on our enrollments, and it's like I said, the deployments. If we ever finish and come to a world that there's going to be no wars, we may be able to make some good headway in offering a lot of classes. But until that happens, we are based, whatever we have to do, we have to base it on where our deployments go and stuff. And sometimes we work hand in hand with the Education Center, but we don't get, they can't come to us and say, hey, you know what, when you put all these classes on your next schedule, they can't come to tell us that, hey, just by FYI, 1st Cav, 3rd Armored, 1st Cav and the 3rd Brigade is going to deploy. They can't do that because obvious reasons. So, we might put a bunch of classes out there, and before we know it, the whole division may be gone. So, so we have to try to deal with deployments. Another thing is, the Chancellor talked about contracts. Well, there was a contract called NCO Lead, and wow, my tie. Okay, there was a contract called NCO Lead, and let's see if I can get this. Nope, I don't want to form current slide. Can I do this? There you go. There was a contract called NCO Lead that was canceled about a year ago, and the contract is back. It's been completely funded and stuff, and we're hoping that once they put it out there that we'll be able to get the NCO Lead class. I don't know if you know this, and maybe some of you don't even had no idea. On Fort Hood, we used to have a number of universities there. We had Texas A&M that used to teach face-to-face, Mary Hardin Baylor, we had programs from University of Maryland, and we had other colleges like Excelsior. And last year, the Army asked all those schools to leave post. So we are the only school that's on Fort Hood. Now, I will tell you, being the Dean of Continental Campus, the competition in other locations is tremendous. At some locations, like at Fort Lewis, there are 13 schools that teach on Fort Lewis, and we are in competition with all those guys. Here on Fort Hood, we're the only game in town, but I think it's really to our disadvantage. The reason is that without all those schools and those upper level schools, we used to feed that they needed lower level courses, and we were the only ones on post that could teach them. So they would all come to us. Now we don't have those schools that we need to feed into. So we lost, a good opportunity here. I think what's going to happen, and I've been told a number of times already, that the Army at Fort Hood, the ESO, we're going to invite some more schools back to teach again. But until that happens, we're going to be the only game in town, and we won't have anybody to feed into, and so it's one of our concerns. Everybody should, I think, knows about what tuition assistance is. There's a change coming to tuition assistance in the Army. The Army's the other services already do this, or a couple of services already do this. The Army's going to change the way that they provide TA. TA presently is now only used for education. As the Chancellor said, you can't use TA on Army duty time because it doesn't enhance any kind of training for the military. The Army's looking at changing the program, and what they're looking at is that they're going to change TA into two parts now. One will be for education, and the other one will be for certifications. The certification part will be different than the transition part. When most people think about certifications and using TA, the Army would you could use your TA to get a certification as you were transitioning out of the military. What they're looking at is the Army's thinking about, hey, we're going to use tuition assistance for certifications that are related to MOS, your job. So that means that if you're a welder, then you are able to get a certification in welding while in the military, and that's going to be able to be used. That's one of the ways you're going to be able to use your tuition assistance. And so any kind of certification that's directly related to their MOS or their job, they will be able to use that to take those classes. Now, there's a caveat to that. If you are a truck driver and there's a welding certification program that you want to get into, the Army said, no, you can't do that. You have to use the certification related to your job. So if you're a welder, then you get welding. If you're a truck driver, you can get, I guess, I don't know, not truck driving school, but maybe a mechanics class or something of that nature. The Army's fielding this. They're looking at it. And we've been contacted, Central Texas College, as maybe a test bed for this. I know we were contacted, and, you know, everybody throws Ronnie Turner's name around, and I'll tell you what, he's the man on the programs for us for certifications. So he's been contacted. We were contacted by the what they call MCOM, and they want to maybe test bed the welding program here at Fort Hood. So we'll see how that tuition assistance goes. Next thing we want to talk about is the Continental Campus and what we call Army University. Army University was a program, or is a program, and it has yet to get off the ground, where the Army wanted to select certain colleges and universities to support certain programs at the schoolhouses where they teach their MOSs. And it was for the enlisted ranks, not for the officer ranks. So at Fort Leonard Wood, we were contacted by the MP school that said, hey, look, would you be interested in partnering with the MP school, and depending upon what their training was, how much credit would you give us for their training? And then what would happen is that everybody that would go through the MP school, they would be exposed to that school to sign up so that they can get their associate's degree and continue their education on going through their military career. Well, we had a number of opportunities, and really so far the only one that I know of, or the only location that I know of that we've got acceptance so far was at Fort Sill with their NCO Academy, and I can't now, all of a sudden I forgot what the other schoolhouse is there, but is it a warrant officer for air defense technology or something. So we've been able to partner with them. We also have 2 more that are outstanding at Fort Knox. Those are under review, and we're supposed to meet with those people next week, I think, and they have what they call recruiting command there and personnel command. And so we'll check with them, and we're in the running there in those 2 schools to become their school of choice for their soldiers. Fort Knox, we ventured into a dual enrollment program with a high school on Fort Knox. We thought it would be a whole lot easier, but it turned out like anything else working with the military. It's turned out difficult, and so it's already all the way passed through the Department of Defense. It's already back to Fort Knox. We have the approval. We're just now going to sit down and try to figure out the process and how it's going to run. So I think we're going to see that happen. I thought we'd be into it by now, and I'm not going to say, I'm going to say next semester, because it just doesn't work as fast as everything you wish it would work. We have broadcasted classes that we tried between the sites. We've broadcasted between our Eglin Air Force Base and our Fort Rucker Army Airfield base. And I'll tell you what, the first one has gone, our first classes have gone pretty good. I thought we would be broadcasting in Alaska also last semester, and Fort Bragg and Fort Stewart, but those didn't quite get off the ground. We had a lot of technical problems and stuff, so we plan to try to get those going, and once those get going, then we're going to expand the program once I can find some money. Michelle, to buy equipment. Now, I guess I'll be in your office begging. But what we want to do is, because, in these locations, like I said, we're in competition with a lot of different schools and stuff, and some of the populations there are small. Like at the Air Force bases, they have the only thing we can provide to them are some filler courses for the Air Force college, junior college that they have. So the market is small. So what we're trying to do is combine the sites so that they can teach between the sites using Blackboard Collaborate. So, and we're going to move forward to that. One of the things that has changed now for us at Continental and the chairs, we're going to send our faculty qualifications to you. I think it's a great idea. I think it, honestly, I do. When you think about prior to sending it to the chairs, all faculty qualifications were done by our site directors, who have masters in anything but what is being taught there, and then it would come to me, who I only have my master's in business, so I was reviewing faculty qualifications for psychology, and I'm like, oh yeah, these will work. Heck, I don't know. I sent them to Dr. Garrett. She's coming back to me like, what is this? I'm like, hey, look, it says psychology. That's all you need to do. I don't know what psychology was all about. I failed that class. So, but anyway, we did, so it's going to all go to the chairs, which I think is a great thing, because it's a couple different reasons. Number one is that our site directors now will be able to probably communicate a little bit more with the chairs, and that would bring a little bit better quality of instruction in our sites, and I think that's going to be a big plus for us. There's a couple things that I do want to talk about too, is graduations. I go to graduations throughout the year at different locations, and I will tell you what I do is at these graduations, they're usually combined graduations on a military location. So there's probably 200 graduations, or 200 graduating students, and I will tell you, normally, between 30 and 50% of the graduates that are there are from Central Texas College. So when I go and I travel to these graduations, I take all our graduates, I put them in a room, and I take the staff out and I say, okay, tell me what CTC could do better. What do we do good? What do we do, what do we do good? What we can improve on, and what's your comments? We have a couple different things that they talk about. The very first thing is online. And I'll just tell you, so their complaint about online is that our response time is very slow. And I'm not talking about assignments that might takes a lot of time. They're just saying, hey, look, you know what? I give an assignment in, I should get it back before I'm tested on it. And sometimes they don't get it. I send out a question to the instructor, sometimes I don't get an answer back. I just kind of share that once in a while with people, but now I'm starting to get the names or the online instructors, because I need to bring those back, because those remarks are climbing and climbing and climbing. So that's number one. The second thing is book cost. Let me share with you, well, first of all, the book costs, and I said we're competitive in all the Continental campuses, so we get competitive with all the different schools. They're whipping us because their books are basically into their tuition. The cost of their books is into their tuition. About 2 months ago, I was at a seminar on Fort Hood for education, and I was sitting next to this young lady, and she started telling me, and she knew I was from CTC, she started telling me how much she appreciated CTC and the way our online programs go and how much our books cost. And I just, well, anyway, her whole point was, she said that 50% of her students, and this is American Military University, 50% of her students come from CTC. And the reason is because our books cost so much money. Their books are included in their cost of their tuition. They use OpenStax or whatever the different things. But I will tell you, 50%, she told me, over 50% of her students come from CTC. Something that we may want to think about. Other things that I hear from graduating students is that we have the greatest school there is. They think that we're a #1 school helping the military and providing assistance and taking the credits and understanding Eagles on Call, great job. A lot of the instructors, great job. And the only thing they would wish is that we were a 4-year school. So I said, that ain't gonna happen, but anyway. But they do, I will just tell you, we have a great name out there in all the different locations throughout the United States that I travel. And I will tell you, I meet all the ESOs, the Education Service Officers. I meet with the heads of the different schools, the vice presidents, the deans and everything. And everybody knows who CTC is. They'll ask me what school I'm with. I'm saying, I'm with Central Texas College. Oh, yeah, you guys are a great school. Yeah, you guys are here. You guys are doing that. We have a name, and I'll tell you what, we have a name that we can be proud of. And I'll just tell you, it's no better feeling to be at a graduation with soldiers walking across the stage to get their degrees. And it's no better feeling that when you tell other representatives from school what school you represent, and they all know you, that tells you that we've done something right. Thank you.